Harmony Renee Montgomery was born on June 7, 2014, to Crystal Sorey and Adam Montgomery. From the very beginning, her life was marked by instability. Her mother struggled with substance abuse, creating an unsafe environment for a newborn. Just 2 months after her birth, child welfare authorities intervened. Citing neglect concerns, they placed Harmony into foster care with Tim and Michelle Raftery, a family prepared to provide stability and attention to her needs. Harmony faced serious health challenges early in life. She was blind in one eye and had other medical conditions that required monitoring. Despite these obstacles, her foster mother later described her as a bright, social, and happy child, someone who quickly formed connections with those around her. The Rafteries provided a nurturing home, but her placement there was not permanent. Over the next few years, Harmony's life was defined by movement between homes. Under the supervision of the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families DCF, she alternated between living with her mother and returning to foster care. This instability persisted until 2018, when Crystal Sorey permanently lost custody of Harmony and her younger half-brother, Jameson. Jameson was later adopted, a decision that legally separated the siblings but could not erase their emotional bond. That bond would become a poignant detail after Harmony's disappearance. In February 2019, the Massachusetts court made a consequential ruling. Adam Montgomery, Harmony's father, was granted full custody, despite his documented history of violence and criminal behavior. The judge chose not to apply the Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children, ICPS, a measure designed to ensure oversight when a child moves to another state. This decision ended Massachusetts' DCF supervision entirely. Following the ruling, Harmony was relocated to New Hampshire to live with her father. This marked a critical turning point in her life, one that would later draw significant criticism from child welfare advocates and officials. The Massachusetts Office of the Child Advocate concluded that the system had prioritized parental rights over a vulnerable child's safety. That choice, in the absence of ongoing oversight, would have devastating consequences in the years to come. On December 7, 2019, prosecutors say Adam Montgomery fatally assaulted his 5-year-old daughter, Harmony Montgomery, following a bathroom accident. At the time, the family, Adam, his wife Kayla Montgomery, and Harmony, were living inside their car, moving between locations in New Hampshire. According to testimony from Kayla Montgomery and corroborating court records, the incident began while Adam was driving. Angered by the accident, he repeatedly struck Harmony in the face and head with a closed fist. The blows were so forceful that Kayla later described a visible change in Harmony's facial profile. Despite the severity of the injuries, Adam did not stop immediately. The assault continued until he appeared to realize the extent of the harm he had caused. Rather than seeking medical help, Adam made a series of deliberate choices that prosecutors later characterized as showing cruelty and depravity. He drove to a Burger King, where he purchased food, and then used drugs, all while Harmony's condition worsened in the backseat. Witness accounts from the trial emphasize that no attempt was made to call for help or take her to a hospital. Later that same day, the car broke down. It was at this point, according to Kayla's testimony, that Adam discovered Harmony had died. Faced with the reality of her death, Adam began the process of concealing her body. Kayla told the court that Adam folded her in half to fit her into a hospital-style duffel bag. This action marked the beginning of a months-long effort to hide Harmony's remains, a decision that ensured her body would never be recovered. The prosecution argued that these events demonstrated not only physical violence, but also profound disregard for Harmony's life. The details presented in court painted a picture of calculated neglect, where opportunities to save a child's life were ignored. Kayla's account, delivered under oath, provided the timeline that connected the assault, the lack of medical intervention, and immediate concealment of the body. December 7, 2019, thus became a pivotal date in the investigation, a day when, according to prosecutors, a preventable tragedy was sealed by a father's violent actions and his refusal to seek help. Following Harmony Montgomery's death on December 7, 2019, Adam Montgomery began a prolonged effort to hide her body, moving it between locations over the next 3 months. The sequence of events, detailed in Kayla Montgomery's testimony, revealed the disturbing lengths he went to in order to conceal the crime. Initially, Harmony's body was placed in a hospital-style duffel bag. From there, Adam moved the bag into the trunk of a friend's car, where it remained for a period of time. This first step in concealment showed a calculated attempt to keep her remains hidden from both authorities and anyone who might suspect what had happened. The body was then transferred into a cooler, which Adam placed in the hallway of an apartment building. It was a location passed by others daily, yet the true contents remained unknown. At some point, Harmony's remains were moved again, this time into a ceiling vent at a homeless shelter. Prosecutors later underscored the disturbing fact that Adam slept directly beneath that ceiling, fully aware of what was hidden above him. Kayla testified to one of the most unsettling details. She was forced to carry Harmony's remains inside a maternity tote bag, placed beneath her other children in a stroller, as they moved between locations. This act, she said, was done under Adam's direction, adding another layer of cruelty to the concealment process. Eventually, Adam transported Harmony's body to the Portland Pie restaurant, where he was employed. There, he stored her remains in a workplace freezer. The concealment continued until March 4th, 2020, when Adam disposed of her body entirely. To this day, Harmony's remains have never been recovered. Even when offered a reduced prison sentence in exchange for revealing the location of his daughter's body, Adam Montgomery refused to provide the information. This decision has left investigators, family members, and the public without closure, ensuring that the final resting place of Harmony Montgomery remains unknown. Prosecutors presented these movements of the body as evidence of Adam's intent to obstruct justice and avoid accountability. Each step in concealment was another calculated attempt to erase the physical evidence of a crime that could not be undone. Harmony Montgomery's disappearance went unnoticed by authorities for nearly 2 years. Her mother, Crystal Sorey, began to grow concerned when Harmony failed to attend a planned Thanksgiving visit in 2019. Attempts to reach Adam Montgomery for answers were unsuccessful, as he blocked her on Facebook, cutting off one of the few lines of communication. Crystal's last contact with her daughter had been a FaceTime call in the spring of 2019. As months passed without any sign of Harmony, Crystal's suspicions deepened. In November 2021, she formally reported her daughter missing to Manchester police. The report set off an investigation that immediately revealed troubling inconsistencies. Adam told others that Harmony was living with her mother, a claim that investigators quickly determined to be false. Interviews with Adam's relatives uncovered allegations of prior abuse. One family member recalled seeing Harmony with a black eye in 2019, allegedly the result of Adam having bashed her. Reports of such incidents have been made to child protection agencies, but no decisive action followed. These missed opportunities to intervene became a central criticism as the case unfolded. The investigation moved swiftly when authorities began piecing together the timeline. Physical searches were conducted, witnesses were interviewed, and evidence was reviewed. Despite the absence of Harmony's body, investigators relied on testimony and circumstantial evidence to form a grim conclusion. By January 2022, Manchester police announced that they believe Harmony had been murdered. The announcement marked a turning point in public awareness of the case, transforming it from a missing child investigation into a homicide inquiry. In August 2022, officials went further, publicly confirming their belief that Adam Montgomery was responsible for his daughter's death. Adam was arrested in early 2022 on charges connected to Harmony's disappearance. While the exact circumstances of her death were not yet disclosed, authorities made it clear that the evidence pointed to a violent and deliberate act. The arrest ended the long period in which Harmony's fate had been unknown to law enforcement but opened a new chapter, one focused on securing justice for a child whose absence had been overlooked for far too long. Adam Montgomery's murder trial began on February 8, 2024, in New Hampshire. Prosecutors brought multiple charges against him, including second-degree murder, second-degree assault, witness tampering, falsifying physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse. The proceedings focused on reconstructing the events leading to the death of his 5-year-old daughter, Harmony Montgomery, and the subsequent concealment of her body. Throughout much of the trial, Adam was absent from the courtroom. He chose not to attend most sessions, including the day the jury delivered its verdict. His absence was noted by both the prosecution and the media, emphasizing his refusal to directly face the evidence and testimony presented against him. The prosecution built its case on witness statements, physical evidence, and particularly the testimony of Adams' estranged wife, Kayla Montgomery. Jurors heard detailed accounts of repeated assaults, deliberate concealment of Harmony's body, and misleading statements made to investigators and family members. Prosecutors argued that Adams' actions demonstrated intent, cruelty, and a sustained effort to evade accountability. Adams' defense was led by attorney Caroline Smith, who asserted that he had not killed Harmony. Instead, she argued Adam had acted inexplicably after finding her dead. This narrative sought to separate the act of killing from his documented behavior in hiding the body. However, Smith acknowledged that Adams' actions following Harmony's death were deeply troubling and difficult to justify. Initially, Adam had agreed to plead guilty to the lesser charges of abuse of a corpse and falsifying physical evidence. This agreement, however, did not cover the murder and assault charges, which preceded a trial. The prosecution maintained that the totality of the evidence, both direct and circumstantial, pointed to Adam as the person responsible for Harmony's death. On February 22, 2024, the jury returned its verdict. Adam Montgomery was convicted on all counts, including second-degree murder. The decision brought an end to the trial phase of the case, confirming the prosecution's argument that Harmony's death had been both violent and intentional. While the verdict delivered a measure of legal justice, the unanswered question of Harmony's final resting place remained unresolved. Kayla Montgomery, Harmony Montgomery's stepmother, played a central role in the prosecution's case against Adam Montgomery. In 2022, she pleaded guilty to perjury after lying to a grand jury about details related to Harmony Montgomery's disappearance. As part of a cooperation agreement, Kayla provided testimony in exchange for parole in 2024. Her decision to cooperate marked a turning point in the investigation and later in the trial. On the stand, Kayla delivered a detailed account of the day Harmony was killed, the subsequent concealment of her body, and her own involvement. Actions, she said, were carried out under Adam's direction. She described the repeated assaults Adam inflicted on Harmony on December 7, 2019, following a bathroom accident while they lived in their car. According to her testimony, Adam struck Harmony multiple times in the face and head, altering her facial appearance. Kayla also outlined the steps Adam took to hide Harmony's remains over following months, moving the body through a series of locations, including a duffel bag, cooler, ceiling vent, and freezer. She recounted being forced to carry Harmony's remains inside a maternity tote placed beneath her other children in a stroller. Kayla testified that she complied out of fear, describing a marriage marked by control, intimidation, and abuse. Defense attorneys challenged her credibility throughout cross-examination. They highlighted her criminal record, her prior lies to authorities, and inconsistencies in her statements over time. The defense argued that her shifting accounts raised doubts about the reliability of her testimony. Despite these challenges, prosecutors emphasized that Kayla's testimony was consistent with other evidence and witness accounts. They argued that her inside knowledge of the events, combined with corroborating details, made her an indispensable witness. Ultimately, the jury appeared to accept her account as credible enough to support the prosecution's case, contributing significantly to Adam Montgomery's conviction on all charges. On May 9, 2024, Judge Amy Messer sentenced Adam Montgomery to a term of 45 years to life for the murder of his daughter, Harmony Montgomery. Additional consecutive sentences for second-degree assault, witness tampering, falsifying evidence, and abuse of a corpse brought his total minimum sentence to at least 56 years. These terms will be served after his existing prison sentence for unrelated weapons charges. The prosecution had extended an offer to recommend a reduced sentence if Adam disclosed the location of Harmony's remains. Despite the opportunity, Adam refused to provide any information, maintaining his silence and leaving Harmony's final resting place unknown. The sentencing hearing included deeply emotional victim impact statements. Harmony's mother, Crystal Sorey, described Adam as a monster and spoke through tears about her daughter's light, joy, and enduring spirit. She reflected on the years lost and the pain of never being able to give Harmony a proper burial. Jameson, Harmony's younger half-brother who had been adopted after being separated from her in childhood, shared his grief through a statement read aloud by his adoptive father. He described the special connection he shared with Harmony, recalling how she made him laugh and feel safe. His words conveyed a profound sense of loss, emphasizing the lifelong impact her absence will have on him. The courtroom atmosphere was marked by a mixture of sorrow and outrage, with many attendees expressing frustration that Adam's refusal to reveal Harmony's location deprived the family of closure. The judge's remarks underscore the severity of the crimes and the cruelty shown, making clear that the lengthy sentence was both a punishment and a measure to protect the public from further harm. In March 2024, Adam filed an appeal of the conviction, seeking to overturn the verdict. At the same time, Harmony's mother, Crystal Sorey, began legal proceedings to have her daughter officially declared deceased, a necessary step to resolve certain legal matters and to formally acknowledge Harmony's death in court records. Crystal also pursued a wrongful death lawsuit against New Hampshire's Child Welfare Agency, alleging negligence in protecting Harmony despite multiple warning signs and reports of abuse. The case concluded with a settlement in which the state agreed to pay $2.25 million to Harmony's estate. The settlement did not include any admission of wrongdoing by the agency, but it drew significant public attention to systemic shortcomings in the oversight and protection of vulnerable children. The outcome of Harmony's case prompted renewed public and legislative debate about child welfare reform. Advocates, legal experts, and state officials emphasized that the failures in Harmony's case were not isolated. They noted similar multi-million-dollar settlements in other child death cases, pointing to a pattern of systemic issues, including insufficient oversight, miscommunication between agencies, and prioritizing parental rights over child safety. Officials stressed the urgent need for comprehensive reform to ensure earlier intervention in cases of suspected abuse, better cross-state coordination, and stronger accountability for agencies tasked with protecting children. Harmony's story, they argued, should serve as a catalyst for change, reminding policymakers that failures in the system can have irreversible consequences. On Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, 24-year-old Jessica McLaughlin arrived for her shift at the 7-Eleven on Melrose Avenue in Hollywood. It was a familiar routine. She had worked this shift many times before, handling customers, restocking shelves, and closing her register at the end. There was nothing unusual about the day until the final moments before she was scheduled to leave. Shortly before 2 p.m., Jessica was preparing to clock out. In the store with her was assistant manager Valeria Parra, a woman with whom she had a strained relationship. Without warning, a heated argument erupted between them. Eyewitnesses later described the exchange as loud, fast, and intense. What began as verbal confrontation escalated almost instantly into physical violence. According to those present, Valeria allegedly threw a bottle at Jessica. The object struck with enough force to shock nearby coworkers. Within seconds, Valeria grabbed Jessica by the hair, dragging her violently and swinging her toward the floor. She forced Jessica onto the ground, straddling her chest while continuing the assault. The scene was chaotic, with other employees attempting to intervene. Several coworkers tried to pull Valeria away, but she resisted forcefully, fending off anyone who approached. Witnesses recalled her strength and the difficulty of stopping her. For several tense minutes, the assault continued in plain view. At one point, Jessica managed to get back on her feet, gasping for breath. She uttered words that would remain with everyone who heard them. "Call 911, I can't breathe." Moments later, she collapsed again. Even after she was no longer resisting, Valeria continued striking her before abruptly standing and walking away. Jessica lay motionless on the floor. A coworker rushed to her side, quickly realizing she was not breathing. CPR was started immediately, while another employee called 911. Panic spread to the store as staff members tried desperately to help, uncertain of how to reverse the damage already done. When LAPD officers arrived, they found Jessica unconscious and unresponsive near the register. Paramedics worked quickly, placing her on a stretcher and transporting her to the hospital. She still had a pulse, but it was weak. Her injuries and oxygen loss made her condition critical. As medical teams fought to keep Jessica alive, another development was unfolding inside the store. While she received emergency care, someone was already taking steps to conceal what had happened. It would soon become clear that, in the aftermath of the violence, there were attempts to erase vital evidence that could show exactly how events had unfolded that day. In the immediate aftermath of the assault, the atmosphere inside the 7-Eleven was tense and chaotic. Jessica McLaughlin lay on the floor, surrounded by coworkers frantically attempting CPR and calling for help. Every second mattered. Yet the woman responsible for the attack showed no sign of remorse or urgency to assist. Eyewitnesses later described how, instead of moving toward the injured Jessica, Assistant Manager Valeria Parra walked calmly toward the store's back office. Her demeanor stood in stark contrast to the panic gripping the rest of the staff. Once inside, she focused on the surveillance system, the very equipment that had recorded the assault moments earlier. Witnesses recalled that her priority appeared to be accessing and deleting the footage. The act was deliberate, suggesting an awareness of the incriminating evidence it contained. While her coworkers were locked in a desperate struggle to save Jessica's life, Valeria's concern was erasing the record of what had happened. After spending several minutes in the office, she emerged, bypassed the scene entirely, and left the store. She did not run. Instead, she retrieved a bicycle and rode away through the streets of Hollywood, leaving behind a traumatized staff, a critical victim, and a partially destroyed crime scene. By the time LAPD officers arrived, Valeria was gone. First responders attended to Jessica, who was still clinging to life but unresponsive. Despite Valeria's efforts, investigators were able to recover portions of the store surveillance footage. While unreleased to the public, authorities later confirmed that the video clearly depicted the assault in progress. Detectives also collected detailed accounts from multiple witnesses who had seen the incident unfold from only a few feet away. Jessica's family soon provided context that reframed the attack as more than a sudden outburst. According to them, Valeria had been targeting Jessica for weeks. She had repeatedly argued with her, created a hostile environment, and made her feel unwelcome at work. Jessica's smaller frame and gentle demeanor made her a frequent target. Her family suspected jealousy was a factor, describing her as warm, helpful, and compassionate, qualities that drew people to her but may have provoked resentment from her manager. The violence of that day left Jessica without oxygen for nearly 10 minutes. Medical personnel worked to stabilize her, but the damage to her brain was irreversible. She was placed on life support, her condition critical, as her family gathered to face the reality of what had been done to her. At the hospital, the hours following the assault were defined by uncertainty and grief. Jessica McLaughlin had been placed on life support immediately upon arrival. Machines kept her heart beating, but doctors warned her family that the lack of oxygen to her brain for nearly 10 minutes had caused catastrophic and irreversible damage. Every test confirmed the same reality. Even if her body continued to function, Jessica would never recover consciousness. Her family gathered at her bedside. They spoke to her, held her hand, and searched for any sign of response. In those first days, hope lingered in quiet moments, but it was accompanied by an understanding that the chances of improvement were almost non-existent. Specialists offered second opinions, but each assessment reinforced the same devastating conclusion. Jessica's father, Clancy McLaughlin, became the family's voice during this time. He described the decision they faced as the hardest of their lives, a choice no parent should have to make. His words, shared publicly, carried the weight of their private agony. The recognition that prolonging Jessica's time on life support would not change the outcome. On July 2nd, after 6 days in a hospital, the family made a decision to remove life-sustaining treatment. Surrounded by loved ones, Jessica was pronounced dead at the age of 24. The moment marked the end of a life and the beginning of a new stage in the case. With Jessica's death, the investigation shifted. The assault was now classified as a homicide. The Los Angeles Police Department issued a public statement confirming the change and appealing for help in locating Valeria Parra, who remained at large. The urgency of the search grew, but so did public attention. News of Jessica's death spread quickly online. Messages of condolence and anger filled social media platforms. Strangers shared her story, outraged by the circumstances and the fact that her attacker was still free. The emotional impact extended beyond those who knew her personally. It resonated with people who saw in Jessica's story a troubling reminder of workplace violence and unaddressed harassment. A GoFundMe campaign, initially created to support medical costs, shifted its focus to funeral expenses. Donations poured in, with hundreds of contributors leaving heartfelt notes alongside their contributions. Within days, the total surpassed $$40,000. The comments section became a public memorial, filled with messages from friends, former colleagues, and people moved by her story. For her family, the support was a source of comfort in a time of profound loss. Yet, It could not lessen the reality that Jessica's life had ended violently, in a place where she should have been safe, and that the person responsible had yet to be found. In the days following Jessica McLaughlin's death, grief began to give way to anger. The announcement that assistant manager Valeria Parra was still at large intensified public frustration. For many, the idea that she could walk away from the scene and remain unaccounted for was unacceptable. Social media became the center of that outrage. On platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X, users began piecing together whatever information they could find about Valeria's background. Screenshots of alleged old posts surfaced, along with personal details said to be linked to her. Some claimed to have known her in the past, offering stories about conflicts and instability in her personal life. Whether verified or not, these accounts spread rapidly, fueled by the absence of official updates from law enforcement. Speculation became a driving force. Some online commenters suggested Valeria had crossed into Mexico to evade arrest. Others insisted she was being hidden by friends or relatives. These theories circulated alongside photos, alleged locations, and even images said to be from her past social media activity. The intensity of the discussion escalated further when users began posting what they claimed was her current home address. The conversation shifted from seeking justice to issuing threats. Valeria herself was targeted with messages demanding that she turn herself in, while some posts included explicit threats of violence. Disturbingly, these threats extended to members of her family, with users warning that if police did not act, they would. What began as collective outrage over Jessica's killing was evolving into a dangerous online manhunt. In response to the growing public pressure, 7-Eleven issued a short statement. The company confirmed that Valeria had been terminated from her position and stated that it was cooperating fully with law enforcement in the ongoing investigation. However, to many, the statement felt inadequate. Critics argued it failed to address the deeper issues that allowed the situation to escalate, including why Jessica had been left to work under the authority of someone she had accused of harassment. The case struck a wider chord, prompting broader conversations about workplace bullying, toxic leadership, and systemic failures in handling harassment complaints. On social media, users shared personal experiences of being targeted by managers or coworkers, describing how the concerns had been dismissed or minimized. Many pointed to patterns in which human resources departments sided with the accused rather than the victim, leading to employees being pushed out rather than protected. Jessica's story became a reference point in these discussions, an example of how inaction can lead to irreversible harm. While the search for Valeria continued, the online community remained deeply engaged, driven by a mix of grief, anger, and determination to see accountability. Yet, the intensity of that engagement served as a reminder of how quickly the pursuit of justice can blur into dangerous territory when fueled by unverified information and escalating hostility. In June 2022, 3 years before Jessica McLaughlin's death, another young woman lost her life in circumstances that bore striking similarities. 16-year-old Riley Whitelaw worked at a Walgreens in Colorado Springs, Colorado. She was a dedicated employee balancing her job with school responsibilities. But behind the routine of her shifts, Riley was facing an escalating problem: persistent unwanted attention from a coworker. That coworker was Joshua Johnson, a 28-year-old male employee at the same store. Riley made it clear that his behavior was unwelcome. She reported her concerns to management, explaining that his advances made her uncomfortable and requesting to be scheduled at different times to avoid him. Her request was straightforward. She wanted to feel safe at work. Despite her complaints, management took minimal action. According to later accounts, Johnson was simply told to remain professional. No formal disciplinary measures were taken, and Riley's scheduling concerns were largely ignored. Months later, when Riley sought additional hours, she was told this could only be arranged if she agreed to work alongside Johnson. She accepted the shifts, perhaps trusting that her earlier concerns would be respected. On June 11, 2022, Riley was on duty. Sometime during her shift, Johnson took calculated steps to isolate her from others. Surveillance records later revealed that he stacked large plastic bins in front of a security camera in the hallway leading to the break room. Windows in the area were covered with paper, and a restroom closed sign was placed outside, measures typically used only at closing time. designed to keep people out. Once the area was concealed, Johnson confronted Riley in the break room. The attack was carried out with a Gerber multi-tool. Investigators later confirmed she sustained 42 stab wounds to her chest, neck, face, arms, and hands. These injuries indicated she fought back with every ounce of strength she had, but the assault was overwhelming. When she failed to return from her break, a manager reviewed surveillance footage and noticed a blocked camera. Entering the break room, he found Riley's body on the floor, partially covered with boxes. Blood was present on multiple surfaces, evidence of a prolonged and violent struggle. Johnson left the store after the attack. The following day, state troopers encountered him walking along the interstate nearly 100 miles away. He was covered in cuts and bruises. During questioning, he admitted being in the break room with Riley but denied blocking the camera, despite video evidence. Witness interviews revealed signs of jealousy from Johnson, especially after Riley's boyfriend began working at the store. In 2023, Johnson stood trial. After a short deliberation, the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Riley's murder underscored the consequences of ignoring workplace harassment complaints. Like Jessica, she had spoken up, made clear requests for safety, and relied on her employer to protect her. In both cases, failure to act left them vulnerable, and both paid the ultimate price while doing their jobs. Joshua Johnson's attempt to evade capture after the murder of Riley Whitelaw was short-lived. Less than 24 hours after the attack, state troopers encountered him walking along an interstate nearly 100 miles from Colorado Springs. His clothing was torn, and his body bore visible cuts and bruises. When questioned, he admitted to being in the Walgreens break room with Riley, but denied responsibility for her death. Investigators already had substantial evidence linking him to the crime. Surveillance footage showed him deliberately stacking plastic bins to block the security camera. The crime scene revealed measures taken to conceal the attack, including covered windows and a restroom closed sign placed to deter entry. Witnesses provided statements about his prior behavior toward Riley, including jealousy and resentment after she rejected his advances and began dating another co-worker. Johnson was arrested and returned to El Paso County to face charges. The prosecution presented a case built on physical evidence, surveillance records, and testimony from store employees. They argued that the attack was premeditated, pointing to the deliberate steps Johnson took to isolate Riley from others before the assault. In 2023, his trial concluded swiftly. After only 1 hour deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Johnson was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his life behind bars. While justice was achieved for Riley, her case highlighted systemic failures in workplace protection. Despite multiple complaints, management failed to implement safeguards or reassign her to a safer schedule. The absence of meaningful intervention allowed a dangerous situation to escalate into a fatal one. This reality draws a direct parallel to the case of Jessica McLaughlin. Like Riley, Jessica had expressed discomfort and described mistreatment at work. She endured repeated harassment from her manager, but no effective measures were taken to address her concerns. At the time of reporting, Jessica's killer, Valeria Parra, remained at large. The lack of immediate accountability deepened public frustration and underscored the urgency of addressing workplace safety. Both cases reveal a troubling pattern. When complaints about harassment or bullying are dismissed, the consequences can be irreversible. Employers bear responsibility to investigate allegations thoroughly, enforce protective measures, and remove individuals who pose a risk to others. The tragedies of Riley Whitelaw and Jessica McLaughlin serve as stark reminders that workplace safety is not only about preventing accidents, but also about protecting employees from targeted harm. Failure to act decisively can cost lives, leaving families devastated and communities demanding answers long after the violence has ended.